Hey there, and welcome to your orientation modules. So we're going to take a look at how is a module organized, and specifically, how am I supposed to know what to read and what videos to watch? The module is designed in such a way that you can walk through it and have a focus for your learning, and you can go through and see what you need to read, see what you need to do your quizzes on, and your discussion questions too. So I figured the easiest way to show you before you really dive into the class how a module is organized is just to walk straight through it. So the first thing you want to do here is take a look at the title of the module. So here we have Module 1 overview. Obviously, I already clicked into it. There's a question. How do leaders utilize traits and abilities? So these questions that I put up there, they're really focus questions. And so my hope is that you'll actually keep that question in mind as you go through the reading, keep the question in mind as you go through and watch the videos. And obviously, by the time you get to your discussion question, you're going to be talking about that kind of a question. So you can see I had a little fun here with the Scrabble board at home, and I put an image together. So the images that I put at the start of a module for the overview, they're designed to help you focus and think about what the theme of the unit or the module is. So there are 6 traits to leaders that really stand out across time and across culture. Now, there's way more traits than 6, but these are kind of like the universal, very consistent ones. So we have charisma, integrity, determination, sociability, intelligence, and of course, confidence. And later on, by the time you get to one of the discussion questions, you're going to actually write on these 6 traits. So what I want you to see is I'm going to give you some kind of a visual at the start of the module in the overview. Take a little time, check it out, let it sink in, think about it. All right, here we go. So I have a little bit of writing, and I'm just going to go through and read this for you. This module focuses on leadership traits. You will learn about the principles of leadership traits and discuss leadership traits in action. What is leadership? That's a great introductory question. Videos in Chapter 1 of the North House ebook and the required reading will give you plenty to think about. So I just want to pause right here because one of the things a student should wonder is, hey, how do I know what to read? Well, guess what? I'm telling you right there in Chapter 1 of the North House book, you're going to have some videos. Now, in a bit, I will go ahead and show you about the North House book. But for right now, I just want to continue on with the reading. So I would encourage you to take in the idea that leadership is not bound to a formal title or position. It's something people do when they try to create change, and that's something everyone can do in their own way within the context of a small group. So I want you to stop and think a little bit here, especially because we're early in the course. This is a small group communication class. We're going to focus a lot on leadership, but it's very much leadership within a small group because leadership is a very important dynamic of small group communication. And one of the key principles here that you're being introduced to is the idea that leadership is not just a formal position. It's what people bring to the table. It's what they have to offer. And you may be the official leader, or you may be the lowest person in the hierarchy. But if you have let's say one of these traits, you have intelligence, you have confidence, you have integrity, you have charisma, you have any of these traits. You may just be a really sociable, likable person too. You have the potential to really bring something to that small group. And so this concept that leadership in a small group is something where people bring their traits and those traits have influence. Well, that's an important concept that I really want you to focus on from the start. And throughout this class, you're going to focus on concepts, but you're also going to focus on examples. And the idea is to see how the examples can be better explained with the concepts and how the concepts are really illustrated with examples. So if you're thinking in that kind of way from the very start, even before you do the reading, I think it should help give you the right mindset, that you're really focusing in on learning concepts and looking for and understanding examples of them. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead here to this section. I write, in this module, you will focus on leadership traits as well as other ideas about what makes someone a leader. I think that it is particularly useful for you to identify leadership traits in people that you admire. It makes the ideas real, not just theoretical, and it gives us the chance to have a discussion about leaders who have the traits and abilities to inspire us. All right, so I will just tell you right off the top of my head that, lots of times when we think about leaders, we think about big, famous political leaders, people who are in the news. I'm going to really want you to instead focus on lesser known people. Okay, and there's an assignment where I'm going to have you do that. And, a number of years ago in Ellensburg, there was a softball game, and a woman hit a home run. But when she rounded a base, she absolutely wrecked her knee and she could not continue. And, this was a key moment. And instead of having that person be out of luck and that team be out of luck, two of the Central Washington University softball players, they took leadership and they helped that softball player up. They supported her so she was okay, and they basically became her crutches. They basically carried her around so that she could round the bases and get her home run. And there's just a wonderful story with that. It made national news and it shows integrity. Remember, integrity is one of those big six leadership traits. So when I say I want you to be able to look for and identify examples of leadership, that's what I'm talking about. You may have never heard of these wonderful athletes that made national news because of their integrity and because of their sportsmanship, but it's certainly worth uh, identifying and writing about and discussing as a class. I always enjoy seeing the leaders that you pick. Okay, continuing on. In this module, you will read both chapters 1 and 2 in the Northhouse textbook. There is a leadership questionnaire as well as interesting reading and useful videos. So the questionnaire, that's something you take where you identify your own leadership traits and then you can write about that. I like the definition of leadership offered by the presenter in one of the videos. And if you're wondering, this is her right here. You can read it in the screen capture image below. I agree that leaders are people who get us to do more than we would do on our own. So she says, and actually in her video, these words appear on our whiteboard, leader, noun, individuals who help us overcome our own selfishness, weakness, and fears, and get us to do harder, better, more important work than we would do on our own. For me, I love that definition of leadership. I love that explanation. Leaders can help us to do more than we would do on our own. That kind of a leader is someone who's charismatic and they're inspirational. Okay, so here's something you might not do. You might not read videos or watch videos that aren't required. Well, guess what? Her video is not required, even though it's great. And there are plenty of video links that I'm going to provide you with and that are in the Northhouse textbook. And I simply can't require them all. But here's the deal. I'm going to challenge you to click on some and find some that you like and that you learn from. You don't have to watch all of them. And maybe you'll click on some and you'll say, hey, that's not for me. But you know what? I clicked on this video and I happen to actually like it quite a bit. So I hope you find videos that are optional that you love learning from. All right, so we're gonna just click on down here. Now, just looking at this, how is the module organized? I basically just went through the overview with you, and then you can go ahead and click next. And by the way, if you skip all of this overview stuff and you just go straight to an assignment, you're basically missing out on the instruction that I've organized for you. And at times, students will email me and say, what am I supposed to read? What am I supposed to do? Well, guess what? It's really there for you. Go to the overview page. Please, please, please go to the overview page. Start from the beginning of the module and be very intentional about taking in the questions because they're going to help you focus. And have fun with the images too, because they're going to help you focus too. Okay? And, with something as simple as this definition of leadership, we can take that, individuals who help us overcome our own selfishness, weakness, and fears, and get us to do harder, better, more important work than we would do on our own. I would always challenge you to say, how does this quote apply to me? Whatever you're learning about, you're going to learn it better, you're going to remember it longer, it's going to be more meaningful if you can apply it. So you could say, have I ever had that kind of a leader? Have I ever had someone who's tried to help me overcome my own selfishness? Wow, that's a hard thing to admit that we could be selfish. My own weakness. That's hard to admit that we could be weak, but you know what? In our times of weakness, if we did have someone help us overcome our weaknesses and our fears, I bet we would really appreciate that person. Now, here's the deal. That's half of the challenge. The other half is for you to try to be that kind of ideal leader. Is there a way that you can help others to overcome their own selfishness, to help them overcome their own weakness? Are there ways that you can help people overcome their own fears and get them to work harder? What kind of a leader would be able to do that? And I'll tell you what, if we go back here, I'm just going to give you something to brainstorm on. Perhaps someone with intelligence, perhaps someone with confidence, perhaps someone with charisma, integrity, determination, or sociability. Now, the challenge is for you to figure out, what are your strengths? What comes naturally to you? And if being social is what comes natural to you, maybe just being friendly and social with somebody can help them to overcome their fears. Maybe determination is your thing, and you can set a high example and through your example and maybe a high five or a you can do it. Maybe you can inspire someone too. So ultimately, I think leadership is a kind of a service. And so I would hope that if you take this challenge of helping someone else to overcome their shortcomings, that you're doing it in a way that's welcoming and you're not a crowbar, you're not twisting their arm, but you're kind of inviting them, and they might see something in your traits that would inspire them to take action. Okay, so we're going to click on to the next part. All right, so one of those questions, how do I know what to read? Well, guess what? It says right there, it's the North House book. North House is the last name of the author, and it's chapter 1. The focus is understanding leadership. Okay, so that's what to read. Well, what's the point of doing the reading? What are the objectives? Here are 2 objectives. Number 1, explain what leadership is and does. Number 2, identify and discuss leadership traits. You will have open book reading quizzes to assess your understanding of small group leadership principles and concepts. Yes, I did say open book, okay? For me, I really, really, really want you to be motivated to read and to read closely. Okay, so the goal is for you to take your book out and go ahead and just do the quiz and the reading at the same time. That works for me. Okay, you will also have discussion questions, which are an opportunity for you to explain what leadership is and does and to discuss leadership traits. Treat these discussion questions as a mini essay. It is important to have well-organized information that shows your understanding of the reading. Your inclusion of direct quotes and specific examples is important. Be sure to explain direct quotes and make use of specific examples. Those are hallmarks of good writing that I look for. Here's the deal. I have graded many of these discussions. Some people treat them kind of informally. Other people treat them as mini essays, and there is a huge difference. What I'm always going to be looking for is how you incorporate direct quotes and concepts and key terms and ideas from the reading, and you make your writing interesting. You should have your own voice, your own experience, but put some detail into it, have something to say. So this is where, if you're reading in an intentional way and you're saying, how does this apply to my experience, and what examples are given in the book that are meaningful to me, when you get to the mini essay part, you're going to have a lot more to say. Okay, I really don't want super short, grammatically incorrect written responses that show a lack of effort. Put the effort in, it will be very clear. Take the time to edit, take the time to revise your writing, and always remember that you're writing for an audience. It's not just for me, but it's for your classmates too. Have something to offer, okay? And when you can explain an idea clearly and you can relate it to an example, that is worthwhile. And that's something that you can remember a year or 2 years after this particular class. You heard me talk about the Central Washington University softball players that had such integrity. They had such integrity that instead of celebrating their opponent's loss, they took some points against their own team to do something remarkable, which was to help that player and that team have a home run. And in the end, man, that is a life lesson I would want my kids to know. That is a life lesson that I'm grateful for having learned. And it's the kind of thing that could guide us as leaders for our own small groups. And it could help people to see what kind of leaders we want to be. So ultimately, in these discussion questions about small group leadership, I hope you're making a statement about how you're thinking about leadership and the people that you admire. And hopefully they're people, with integrity and confidence and intelligence. And, sometimes they may have traits that you have in abundance, but at other times they might be people that have traits that maybe we're not as strong in, and we want to learn from them and grow to be more like them. Okay, so we're going to click on here, the next button. Okay, there we go. North House, Chapter 1, the ebook. So we're going to click here. All right, so I have already signed in today. You will most likely need to put your username and password in. Just what I want you to see is there's a whole book in here that you're going to be reading. This guy here, Peter Northouse, this is your author. I happen to like his author videos quite a bit. It's one of the reasons I chose this book. There are, of course, other videos in here. As I told you before, I can't require every single video, but I think that all of these videos are going to help you to learn. So I encourage you to certainly watch them. And you can see how all of this reading is laid out. And, I'm just going to kind of skim on down to the end here. Click on this. Okay, so here is your conceptualizing leadership questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire that you're going to actually go through and take. Okay, so when you're going through the module, be sure that when there's an assignment that you take note of what it is that you have to find in your ebook. And this leadership questionnaire would be one of those things. So I'm just going to click out of this ebook and we'll get back to where we were in the module. And like I said, I'm just kind of clicking you through the module. You can see that this is your quiz. It's worth 25 points. And you can see that I need to adjust that, so that can happen sometimes at the start of a term. But I will tell you what, just so you know what is going on here. You have the due date here, you have when it's available, and if you ever see that it's open a little bit later than the due date, that means that, hey, you can still take that. Okay, so in this case, this would still be open. And most of the time, the due date and the until date are actually going to be the same. So at any rate, that gave me a chance to point that out for you. All right, so here we have a discussion question, and this is worth 13 points. It's on the big 6 leadership traits, and I'm giving you an example here of the kind of thing that you could write. Now, hopefully you're not going to go and write on the same thing I put. People have not done that. But mostly what I want you to see is, hey, for the discussion questions, you have some directions. In this particular one, I happen to give you an example so you could better understand what you need to do. There's a video as well as an image, and you can see here that I've given some criteria for what you need to do. Okay, so you need to have an action image that clearly represents the leadership trait. check, make sure you have that. Your explanation has details about the leadership trait and the leadership moment. Now, what do I mean by details? Remember, I was talking about direct quotes earlier. So you're going to need direct quotes. You're going to need specific examples. You're going to need details or key moments from those examples. Basically, with your explanation, go into some depth. Don't just say something very, very general and cliche. Okay, personal connection shows why it matters to me. Now, that's from the student's perspective. So I want to know that for you as a student, that whatever you're writing about, there's some kind of a personal connection. So bring that out. And there's a huge difference between when somebody writes on something they really care about and when somebody's just kind of flying through an assignment and they haven't taken the time to make a personal connection or to find meaning with whatever they're writing about. It's very important that you get that check there. All right, one more thing, the extra mile effort. Okay, so extra mile effort by including the outside research, a video, source article, etc. is encouraged. Okay, so you don't just get full credit by not doing something wrong. You get full credit by going the extra mile and doing something that stands out. Okay, so I've given you 4 things to focus on with your writing. And by the way, it's not just for this particular writing assignment. For all of the writing assignments, these kinds of things matter, okay? So make sure that if you don't know how to include an image, that you go through and you learn how to do that, okay? Now the Student Success Center uh, can teach you how to do that. I'll tell you just really quickly what I do. I save an image to Canvas files. Okay, and then when I'm doing my write-up, and you can, see this is where you write, there is a box here that says embed image. Okay, so I will click on that, and then I will go to Canvas, and then I will go to course files, and then I can pick whatever image it is that I happen to want to include. Okay, here's a fun one that I picked out recently. So I could click on that and then go to update. And here you can see this is kind of giant. So I'm gonna make it a little smaller. And here's the deal. It's important to me that your images are embedded, that they're not links, because most people are not going to take the time to go through and actually open all of your links. We want to be able to see what the images are as we go through and read the essays. So real simple, save your image files to Canvas files, go to this little embed icon, click on it, upload your image, and you will be good to go. Okay, and so at the end, you will obviously post your reply. Now, I don't need to save all of that, so we're just going to go to next. Okay, so the next thing in this module, it says North House, Chapter 1, Open Access Video and Multimedia. Okay, I love all the multimedia type stuff in here. You can learn a lot, but this page shows resources that are optional. Who knows, you might learn something new from them. And I'll tell you what, this one here is the Harvard Business Review, and they're going to have videos that get updated through time. So you might find something worthy there. This is a fun, short little, kind of cute video on leadership. I would say just click on these videos, give them half a minute, see if they pull you in. If they do, awesome, you can learn something new. And if they don't within a half a minute or so then that's fine. They're optional. Go click on the next one, see what you can learn. And, here's a little tip for you too. If I was you, I would treat this like a class. It is a class, but watching the optional videos, I would have a notebook and I would take notes and I would suggest writing down what do you learn about the theories? What do you remember in terms of examples? And there's something about the process of writing down notes and keeping that information that actually helps you keep it in your memory. So when you get to the discussion questions, you're not just going to say, wow, I wished I knew more. You might say, hey, you know what? I wrote down something in my notes and I want to reference that in my discussion question. And so I think if you're clicking on this stuff, it will help you with that. So moving on. So we're moving on now to chapter 2, which is recognizing your traits and your learning objectives. I'm very tempted to walk through this whole chapter the same way I just did the previous chapter. I think I'm just going to go through it just super, super quickly, just because I want you to see one thing in particular. All right, so we're getting this to load. Okay, so I talked a fair amount about the big six leadership traits. I just want you to see, hey, there's going to be information on that here in chapter 2. Leadership traits, integrity, confidence, determination, traits of great leaders, intelligence in leadership. We have some web stuff on effective traits. And then we have information on charismatic leadership and trait and leadership styles. Okay, so there's all kinds of great stuff in here in a leadership traits questionnaire. So I'm just going to keep that overview there for you just so you know what's coming up. Okay, so let's hop on back here. I think we will go back to modules and we will just kind of get a little overview of what we just looked at. So the big question was, hey, what is in a module? How do I know what to read? How do I know what to watch, what to write, etc.? Well, here's kind of the big perspective of it. You have the title of the module, you have the focus question, how do leaders utilize traits and abilities? And then, you see chapter 1, you see chapter 2, that tells you very quickly without having to click through everything what you're going to need to read. You're going to see this little rocket there, that's the symbol for taking a reading quiz. You can see how much it's worth, when to do it. You can see this little discussion bubble. That's for discussions or mini essays. That shows you the date and how many points it's worth. So you can just visually kind of skim through this and get a sense of what you're doing in this particular module. Okay, so I think that is a pretty good overview for this module. Obviously, you have lots more modules to go through. I'm not going to review all of those because it's the same pattern, right? You're going to have your overview, you're going to have your focus question. In this case, how do leaders establish constructive communication climates in small groups? You're going to have what you need to read, and obviously your assignments there. And there will be different kinds of assignments. So for this one with IDEO, you will actually submit a video. Now you can use Canvas to kind of do your web recording, or you could use your camera, whatever it is. But you are going to have sometimes in this class where you don't just write your responses up, but where you do a web recording. Okay, so I hope this overview was helpful for you. I certainly am trying to do everything that I can to help things be organized and help things be clear and help you be on track so you will enjoy the class and do your very best. So more of these orientation videos to come.